Greetings everyone, my name is Etterville, and welcome back to my Let's Play of Make a Good Mega Man Level Contest 2, or Magmal 2 for short. During the last part, I completed the stages Aurora Man as well as Bouncy Castle. So let's continue further into this Grand Tower. But first let's try talking with these two Roadmasters who are racing. If I can reach them in time, that is. Not you. Okay, then Quick Man and Snake Man are racing around this tower. Yeah, this tower is pretty fun to go loop around with. Anyways, on to the actual stage. In 21st place is City Under Siege by Gone Sovereign, with a score of 34.6. All the scores are around the same region except for Angel, 1 energy element and 2 noble nickels. As a bit of background, this is a combination of the stages City War and Sunset Siege from Magmal 1, and in my honest opinion, this is a fusion stage done right, improving upon the originals immensely while still adding in some new bells and whistles. Here's an announcement from Dr. Wily. The city is called New Harbor here. I really like how the stage actually has some background information to it. And honestly, I was wondering why there wasn't more of these stages in the Mega Man series proper. Outside of maybe the Broken Highway intro stage from Mega Man 7, it makes sense to have this. To have cities under siege because Dr. Wily is trying to take over the world. Although this statement of Dr. Wily planning to slaughter all the people of this city is rather brutal, and it seems kind of out of place if you were to ask me for Dr. Wily. Then again, he may be super desperate. Due to his gloating, he didn't mention where he's actually at. He's set his base inside the city after all, but he's blown up all the highways connecting to it, so willing to take a separate route. Also, good placement of the Camons here. For instance of how the stage improves immensely, the background, it's beautiful. With all of the reflections of the distant buildings on the water, the foreground of the highway could use some sprucing up, but it's not that shabby either. And I really like the stage progression as well, and I'll demonstrate and explain it as we go further and further. I like how the commands or Camons are acting like the street lamps, or street enemies or vehicles. Keep in mind these solid platforms, good introduction here from Fairman's stage. And even though the stages team was made using GXSCC as malaligned it is, I don't mind it. Although the team is rather forgettable, it's at the very least pleasant to listen to. Here's where these non-solid platforms become much more important to pay attention to so you don't fall into the abyss. For some reason, these feel easier to deal with in this engine as opposed to Mega Man Maker. Here's the first unique thing about this level. We now have a Rush Jet scrolling segment, and this works a bit differently than the normal Rush Jets, mainly because you can switch to any other special weapon you want, and you can use them. And the way it works is that you can never get knocked off a Rush Jet as well, similar to the Rush Jet in Mega Man Maker. Too bad there aren't many more shmup segments throughout the level, or other levels. They would be a perfect fit. Also, don't jump into the water, that's instant death. Now that we completed the first part of the stage, the Sunset Siege portion, now we're in the actual city. This is how City War should have been. Also, nice touch there with the Dr. Wily monitor. This stage is certainly charming. In fact, I'd say this level has the most beautiful graphics of any stage in Tier 8. In fact, I'd say this is tied as being my favorite stage of this tier, up there with Bouncy Castle. Even though Gone Sovereign has gone on record stating that they don't exactly like the levels, I still find it to be a quite enjoyable level. It definitely belongs in Tier 8. The one complaint I have is that the Noble Nickels are rather easy to get, but it's still a minor one. I mean, the previous one was a little bit more of a gotcha and miss a moment if you're not paying attention. This one is a freebie, basically. I mean, there are several perfect places to put more Noble Nickels, like behind a tree in the Cityscape segment. Anyways, we're now climbing upwards through Dr. Wily's makeshift base. And that's why I don't like having the weapon pickup be on the delay setting. Because stuff like that can happen. Oh well, at least the checkpoint was right over there. In the next part, I'll turn off that setting of the delayed pickups. Or rather, once you pick up something, there'll be a short delay. I'll turn that off. Also, I like the ramping up of difficulty here. We already saw the Sparkman platforms in safer environments. Now I need to worry about getting crushed into the ceiling by them. Same with the invisible blocks, I mean the non-solid blocks. And unlike Mega Man Maker, I'm a lot more confident with these Sparkman platforms, mainly due to the superior control scheme at least. As I've repeatedly stated on record, I strongly prefer the Magwell 2 control set as opposed to Mega Man Maker 1. Make sure to hold left over here because there's some extra goodies here. I'm not sure what we got here, but I think it's either an extra life or another E-Tank. Anyways, it's time to fight the boss. After all, this is Wily's makeshift base, and this is the most difficult Mecha Dragon encounter in this engine, or rather of all the contested entries, mainly because all these platforms are trying to push you off, so you gotta be a bit careful. But if you at least lure all the fireballs correctly, this fight is fine. Just gotta be a bit careful with your positioning. Come on, please get in. That's the only other funny thing here. I know you can do it, Energy Element. I just wanted to demonstrate a funny glitch that can happen there. It still submitted a normal run, by the way, so we completed the level legitimately, but we died, so we can now fight the Mecha Dragon once again. This also happened during Flashman85's livestream of this game. Would have preferred if there was solid ground added once you picked up the energy element, but this works. Overall, a pretty fun level. Definitely tied as being my favorite level of this tier. Like I mentioned, it's a superior version and combination of City War and Sunset Siege. It's what those two stages should have been, basically. And I wonder if someone else is gonna remake City War again in Magwell 3 and it's gonna end up in the top tier. After all, this got up to tier 8 and that's pretty good. This stage is definitely a memorable stage to me. Also, I really like how we actually had slopes for the roads. And are there any other stages with the Rush Jet segments like this one? Like the shmup segments outside of the Fortress levels? Really, the stage wasn't annoying at all. All the enemies were pretty nicely chosen, and none of the stage's challenges was too difficult or painful to go through. It's a pleasant stage overall. The only real difficult part is of course the Mecha Dragon encounter at the end, especially if you don't have access to the knockback upgrade. There is a bit of difficulty spike near the end, especially if you don't know how Sparkman platforms work. Nonetheless, it's still fun. I still don't know what the Mecha Dragon's weakness is, but honestly, it probably should be the Hornet Chaser to make the fight a bit easier. And yes, this stage is certainly beautiful. Most beautiful stage out of Tier 8. I don't know about you, but for me, Mega Man stages are a combination of aesthetics and design for memorability. Like this stage's gimmick was that it was actually taking place in a city. First taking place outside a city, then we have to ride Rushhead to actually enter it, and then we scale up Wily's makeshift tower to fight the Mega Dragon. Although the Rush Jet segment could be utilized again, maybe when escaping the city, that'd be fun. This stage had quite a bit of effort put into it. As I repeatedly stated, it's tied for being my favorite level. It's just so charming. So my overall score of this stage would definitely be a 37. I'm rating this a bit high, but I really enjoyed it. But once again, I'll have to reevaluate it in the future. Well, I already talked with Hardman, so I'll just walk past him. So next up, in 28th place, is Escape Sequence by Dr. Novakaine with a score of 35.0. It has 1 energy element and 5 noble nickels. If you're wondering why 2 are already collected, I tried playing to part of this level, but the recording glitched up a bit. So let's do this properly. So the plot behind this level is that Proto Man is stuck in this base which is self-destructing. But teleporting out of here requires the usage of 1 energy element, which of course is located at the end of this location. So what Dr. Light did was release the weapon energy and speed limiters. So not only do we have infinite weapon energy for all our weapons, but we also run and jump and slide twice as fast. We also fall twice as fast. Which is super useful because this makes it like a Burst Chaser stage. Although it does have some flaws that Burst Chaser doesn't. And I'm really thankful we have increased speed because Escape Sequence has 126 screens in total, making it the biggest stage in terms of screen count amongst all of the contestant entries. It isn't the longest stage to complete though, that'll be in Tier 9. So far so good. You gotta be a bit careful not to move too fast though, otherwise you'll overshoot those platforms spawning in. Of course you can also just use special weapons. That segment's really scary, and I'd rather just take the lower route because the upper route is a little bit too dangerous for me. You can make the jumps with the 2 spikes, and I'm really thankful we can actually see actual hitboxes with those black squares, but still I don't want to risk it. Plus we can just use stuff like the Hornet Chaser to get everything we want. Plus, infinite weapon energy allows us to do stuff like this. And I don't really need a spare E-Tank, I already have enough. Oh, this segment. Yeah, because we fall twice as fast, getting up there seems to be impossible without stuff like Rush Coil. I just don't know how to reach it. Plus, making these jumps is a little bit hair-raising because of the double speed. That's one of the flaws about this level, and we'll see it more later. And here's a Force Beam segment. I'm not sure if it's instant death Force Beams, but at the very least we can move fast enough. That's a sign telling us that we need to use a Jewel Satellite. You'll see why soon enough. There are rocks coming out everywhere. Thankfully, this destroys all of them. Also, use the Jewel Satellite here as well. You can get by Buster only, but it's a lot less risky to just use a Jewel Satellite. Because I have access to Infinite Jewel Satellite, I can use stuff like this. Time to get what's next on the right. You do need special weapons, of course, so I'll just use Wheel Cutter here. Also, I'm really thankful you can jump beneath these platforms. Usually the gyro platforms are solid at the bottom, but here they aren't. Would have preferred if the use text was present in the previous section too. Unlike burst chaser levels, you are forced to use special weapons here if you want to do it damageless. Isn't that bad though, because of course we have infinite weapon energy. Also, I'm really thankful that these blocks as well are jump through. We finished the Jewel Satellite segment, and now we're in the Rush Jet segment, where we need to blow up all these junk blocks. Thankfully, Rush Jet moves at about the same rate. But we need to make sure not to despawn Rush Jet, otherwise it's just a ticket down into the abyss, or spikes. Okay, we finished the first half of this segment, now the second half. Once again, we need to be careful not to despawn Rush. At the very least, we can potentially damage boost off the enemies, especially due to our double speed. Here's the Sakugane segment, which causes some issues because, remember, Sakugane only protects you from the bottom, not the side or top. And every one of these segments, at least most of them, has noble nickels too. If you time yourself correctly, you can keep bouncing off of all these gravitrons. I need to time my jumping correctly. I need to time the explosion effects properly, and of course the double movement speed causes issues like this of positioning myself, but I made it, as long as I don't hit another thing and get killed by random shrapnel. Oh yeah, you can also bounce off the explosions for whatever reason. That's kind of funny. Thank you for the life refill there, really appreciate it, Novakaine. Still, this segment is fine, you just need to be paid a bit of attention to what's going on. I still find it kind of funny that we can actually just bounce on the explosions themselves. Now time for the Super Arrow segment, where we need to go upwards. I like how each of these weapons has their own use or a different segment. And there's me forgetting that I was too close to the wall there. And also, this was one of the other reasons why I decided to cover only 2 levels in this part. I knew I was going to die several times in this level, especially due to having to get used to the burst chaser physics. They're a lot more different as opposed to like the air sliding level, where we still had mostly the same physics, but here it's significantly different. At least Proto Man's jump height is still the same, that's what I appreciate. I'm not sure what catch up to me was for, but okay then. I get the feeling I was missing a segment or something. Oh yeah, here's also a screen falling segment, or a spike falling segment with double speed. And that's one of the reasons why I don't prefer these tight corridor segments with the rapid movement. I don't mind getting out of here, it's just in that first segment that causes some issues. It's just there's some contrast between the rapid movement of the stage itself beforehand and this part. Because with this spike falling segment, the increased movement speed does not work well with precision. There's a checkpoint right over here though, so I'm thankful for that. On the left is a wheel cutter segment in order to collect the next noble nickel. which I will utilize here. I will die a few times, of course, because you need to quickly react to the spikes. At least it does tell you which directions the spikes are coming from. Or, of course, that can happen. Oops. And I forgot I despawned it. Oops. Well, I have the 4th Noble Nickel in tow, so there isn't really much of a problem. Safety first. Boy, that last segment was a bit scary. Alright, time to go to the left, quickly. And now we have a Galaxy Man teleporter segment. Basically, keep holding left. I'm just holding left here, and nothing else is happening. It's just an easy segment that's kind of like an auto-playing one. Here you need to be a bit careful with your positioning though, so you don't end up falling into the abyss. So there's that one trick there. And here, for example. That was a bit of a close one there. And I don't know what happened there. I thought you were supposed to be able to make that. But still, at least the checkpoint placement for the most part, outside of one segment, is fine for this level. It definitely has a neat atmosphere, a very hectic one, with all the explosions and the warning siren in the background. I'm just holding left constantly over here to see if it works. Okay, now it worked. I probably didn't hold left all the way. Now we just run upwards. These enemies are here just for show. As long as you hold up, we won't get hit. I guess this part of the stage is just for the cinematics. Also like all the different colors of these jet missiles. What kind of place is this anyway? Is this a Wily Fortress? It seems to be. Now we have to keep running to the right in order to survive all these dead force beams, of course. Thankfully they run about the same rate as we do. And there's an alert of what enemies are coming up anyway. And there's a 5th and final Noble Nickel. And there's me dying because of... I don't know what happened there actually. Oh well, at least I got the final Noble Nickel. But I like how each of these enemies is telegraphed with the attention mark in the background. Of course you can just spam buster shots like here and there's no problems whatsoever. Just keep holding right and keep shooting. And that was kind of a blink it or miss it moment there, because if you miss that Noble Nickel and you complete the level, you have to complete the stage in its entirety. So if you missed it, just jump into the force beams. Okay, now I realize what happened here. Once I got out of the facility, my limiters kicked in and I ran out of double speed. So I wasn't able to outrun those. But nonetheless, this stage is over. We're out of here. At least 5 or 6 deaths. I was expecting at least 2 or 3 dozen deaths overall in this stage, but I'm really thankful I didn't die as much. Honestly, this stage feels like a Burst Chaser stage, but it needs some work. Especially with some of the segments like the Super Arrow segment, the Falling segment, and maybe part of the Sakugane segment as well. The Rush Jet segment was fine for me because at a constant rate. Some of the segments with the Super Arrow kind of killed the pacing for me. It is a bit slower, but at least the pacing was kept consistent there. It wasn't stop and go. Ah yes, Pyro's right here, especially because of how the Super Arrow works. The last stretch of the stage was definitely the climax, where we need to run away from the entire explosion. And yes, this stage would definitely be considered wild, though it was very inconsistent, as Jupi points out. Some parts were definitely a blast to go through, like the Galaxy Man teleporter first segment, and the final segment which you could get by if you were just running, as well as the Jewel Satellite segment, actually. But the other segments had some issues with stop and go, and Rush Jet was the slowest part. Maybe if you could double the speed of Rush Jet, that would fix it. At least the atmosphere and level design do complement each other for being a rather hectic one. It is well rewarding for more skilled players, but I would say it's one of the most difficult levels to do no deathless here, in his tier in fact. And yeah, I didn't utilize all my special weapons even though I could have. Really, with some extra work and playtesting, it could be done a lot better. There are a few too many enemies in few segments, that's true. The Rush Jet segment wasn't the main offender, personally speaking. I had more issues with the Sakugarne segment, as well as the Super Era segment. Rush Jet moved slow enough that it was easy enough to deal with them. Well, the Wheel Cutter segment was actually fine because the warnings were placed well in advance of which direction to go. It's a clever level, but it should probably be executed again in a future game. Probably do a version 2 or a sequel to this to see how better it is and to work out the kinks and problems. And yeah, good force beam usage, especially because you can outrun most of them or run at the same rate. So if I were to score this level, I'd probably give it a 33. I like the idea of it, but there are several segments with the stop and go momentum that really kills the stage and kind of works in conflict with the main gimmick of the level of going frantically forward. I want more of the segments like with the Wheel Cutter, Sakugarne, Jewel Satellite, the ending and beginning, not really the Super Arrow segments or the Rush Jet segments. But hey, at least you have a very neat idea, very creative. So that ends this part. So in the next part, I'll be clearing Tier 8. Well then, thanks for watching and have a nice day. Toodles!